All right. I am so glad you're here today for this episode of the Joyful Scaling Podcast, because we're talking about earning your next six figures, focusing on your operational strategy. This is something too few talk about, and it's so important to have a back end of your business that is working for you. So you want your paper and pen out. Now I want you to meet Jeanette Peterson. She's a powerhouse U.S. Air Force veteran who now successfully mentors, empowers, and inspires women. She's on a mission to help 5,000 women become unapologetic. I love that word. Y'all know I do, about their calling and transform into the unstoppable force that you were destined to be. As a business operations strategist, Jeanette helps her entrepreneurial clients, like I said, earn their next six figures as she helps them to be able to change lives and keep them on mission for God's purposed plan for them. Jeanette is a keynote speaker and the host of her own podcast, the Unapologetically Unstoppable Podcast. Let's welcome Jeanette to the show.
Thank you so much, Judy. I'm so glad to be here.
Oh gosh, it is such an honor. I'm so glad we got connected. Now I want to plug my friend Danielle, our mutual friend Danielle. Ladies, this is the importance of loving people and having real relationships with people, because but for Danielle, I might never have met Jeanette. And I know that this relationship is going to go far. Right, Jeanette?
Yes. And I just love her. She's so great. I just really love her.
Yeah, she's genuine and she really loves to connect. And I think that I always say, hey, you want to sign another client, go connect. So bravo to Danielle. All right. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, Jeanette, is I read in your bio that, after a decade in the military as a cybersecurity engineer, and let me just say, I am not sciencey. That is so beyond me. I don't have a clue what it means, except I know you're super smart. Okay. After 10 years or so in the military in that capacity, you decided to transition into entrepreneurship so you could raise your babies and use those God-given gifts. So tell us about that time period and what that transition looked like.
Oh, that was all God. I wish I could take credit for saying that I had decided to leave the military. No, God said, you're leaving the military. It was a crazy period of time between October and July. So what is that, 6 months? My life was drastically different. I went from being full-time in the military to getting pregnant, leaving the military. And then my husband is also in the military, getting orders and us moving across the country to Las Vegas. So it was just a whirlwind of, I was not even walking with Jesus at this point. And I was like, all right, babe, we're going to pray if we're going to have kids, because I'm getting older now and it's not working. I'm doing all the tracking. Let's pray about it. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't even a good prayer. Like I said, I wasn't even walking with Jesus. I'd been saved, but I wasn't walking with Jesus. And I said, all right, God, if you want me to do this, I'm done. I'm out. I fully surrendered, not even knowing what that process looked like or what that actually was, but I did it. And I stopped tracking. I stopped looking. I was like, okay, we're going to go to the infertility, because you have to be a year out of, our insurance was you have to have a year of trying before you can go to infertility. So we did that. Our first doctor's visit at the infertility clinic, we were pregnant. And I was like, what is happening? What is this life?
God said.
I was like, did that actually happen like that? Was that God? And I was still at that point of being like, is that God? And then we moved across the country and I met a girl. We went to church and I got baptized in Sin City. It was just a whirlwind of craziness, got into the entrepreneur life and realized how much I liked, because I'm a techie at heart. I like doing the YouTube and the digital marketing, and all of that was my jam, and automating things and making things work together. And yeah, I just fell in love with it. And then I realized people don't know how to do this. I was like, oh, I can do this for you. Let me do this for you.
Yeah. I just want to back up and say, it's so funny because I would say, if I had to give an estimate, I would say a solid 85% of entrepreneurs out there, myself included, we're kicking and screaming when it comes to tech. It doesn't come natural. I'm creative and I'm a visionary, and so many, especially women are, but the tech we've kind of run from. So I love that. Obviously you know your stuff, but that's such a great niche. So I want to just dive into like, okay, now you're pregnant. So God is like grabbing a hold of you in a whole new way. So
Yes.
when did it really come to you that, wow, I could help women with this that comes so naturally to me? Like, when did it become a business idea in your mind?
So it didn't at first because I was just like, let me see what else is out there. And I kind of uh, um, compartmentalize a lot of things. And so I was like, all right, my military life is over. I'm just going to put that on the shelf. And I'm going to move on to motherhood and whatever else is out there. And I didn't think that like, oh, wait, God made your brain like this. He wants you to use it for his glory, not just like put it on the shelf. Most people don't do this. They don't understand it as to the depth that why are you doing that? So the first thing I did was I helped my friend with her YouTube, and she would like ask me computer questions and I would help her a little bit. But I was like on vacation and she was like, hey, can you help me do this and this? And I like logged into her computer from where I was and like helped her on the screen. And she was like, that is so amazing. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is just what I do. Like, that's how you do it. And she was like, no, that's a thing, girl. I need you to figure that out. Like,
Wow. Wow. That is so good. Okay. That is just amazing. And that's what I was thinking when you say, oh, I just remotely, logged in. It's like, oh, is that all? It's like, I just like, I just threw a salad together. It was that easy. Right. So good. Okay. So I always say, within every specialty, each of us has what I call your own zhuzh. And it's a word I made up because I'm a Francophile, part French, and I think it sounds cool. So like, what is your special something when it comes to operations? Like, where do you really shine?
I really shine in the big picture and how everything gets put together. Like I am a big picture, long-term thinker. So whenever somebody comes to me and they're like, I want to do this, and I'm like, okay, but are you trying to make like an empire here, or are you just trying to like get to tomorrow? Because I'm thinking you're building this empire. How big do we need to go? Like, what scale is it going to be at? What steps are you going to need to take when we get there? Because that's all. I've worked on enterprise systems when I was in the military. I didn't work at just the base. We were doing several bases, and so that's all I think of is massive amounts of impact. And that's who I love to help, is people who create massive amounts of impact.
That is so cool. Now help us understand who your best client is. And
My best client?
Yeah. Get real specific so we don't misunderstand.
So they are in that six-figure mark, $150,000. And they're at the point where they're like butting up against, I need more money, but I don't have enough time. And I need some systems and I can't figure out how to change to get to the next level. I'm doing great right now, but I'm at the ceiling. There's a clear ceiling where I need to change something and I can't figure out what it is. Maybe it's my offers. Maybe it's my systems. Maybe it's a process that I need to do. Maybe I need to bring on somebody on my team, but I can't figure out exactly what it is and how to do it while I'm still trying to market and show for my clients and do all the things I need to do in my business. I'm time tapped out. I've reached that ceiling. So those are the people I help. And they're like, I'm stuck. I need something else. I need a person to come and tell me because I'm too close. I can't figure it out.
Okay. So are most of the women that come to you as clients, do they have tell me about their back end. Do they have systems in place? Do they have team members? Because I know I have a wide audience. A bunch are, at the multi-six, but a bunch are also more in the early stage.
They have a few contractors on their team. They don't have anybody full-time yet. They might have a director of operations. They might have a VA, but they don't have like a team. They don't have like Gary V's team, but they need something that can operate like Gary V's team in the same amount of time. That's where all the automations come in with me, because I will show their team how to automate things so it looks like they're producing the amount of content on that level, or they have like really streamlined client onboarding processes. So the clients have no idea what is happening and it's really, really smooth.
Okay. Yeah. I wondered where would you say that women in this phase of their business, where do you think they need the most help operationally? Is it onboarding with client facing, or marketing, or sales, or just back end systems? What do you think?
It's mostly back-end systems. Once they get on the phone, they can sell, no problem. They don't have a problem selling. It's they need more people in their orbit. And so in order to do that, they're doing a lot of hands-on things that could be automated that they don't even know could be automated. So some of it is, I know I'm doing a lot of in the weeds that somebody could be doing this for me, or could be automated. So that way I don't have to do this and I can spend more time connecting and getting to know people. And that's relationship building, which is how most of my clients get clients anyways. It's not just through, the algorithm, it's relationship building.
Right. So can you give an example of that when you say they don't realize that something could be automated and free up their time?
So like one client of mine is using ClickUp, and they're using ClickUp and they thought that it was too cumbersome, ClickUp is a project management tool. So just in case somebody in your audience doesn't know what that is. And they were saying that they had 2 people on their team. They had a VA and just a general VA, and then they had their podcast manager. And so they were on there and they were saying that they would have to go onto ClickUp, and then she couldn't figure out how to use it. And then all of her stuff would be in Google Drive. So what I did was I made a system where the VA, once everything was done by the podcast manager, would just message her in Slack, and she could just go to Slack because that was easy for her, because she couldn't figure out how to use ClickUp and all the different boards and stuff. So I made the system that was something that she could use and not something that it was basically around her. That made sense to me. Like, why would I make something that's not going to be working for you? So that's the kind of thing I do. Make something easy where you can use it and it just works for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so important that what I find is that definitely women that aren't at 6 figures, and even some of the lower 6 figures, it's always like, oh, tell me how. Like there is no plug and play system for everybody. Just as you said, certain people will acclimate to ClickUp. That's what we use. Others will be like, okay, this is a foreign language. I have no idea how to use this at all. So I love that. It has to be customized. Your operational, SOPs, your processes, everything that you're doing, it needs to work for you. Even your CRM. Judy, what's the best CRM? It's the one you're going to use. I don't know. There's a bunch of them out there.
Right.
Well, let's talk about, getting your clients to their next 6 figures. That is a bold promise, and I love bold. So can you walk us through kind of, without giving away all the goods, just give us really more of an overview of how you even go about that to say, okay, you're at 100, 150. I'm going to get you to 3.
So I really start off with taking a holistic approach of looking at every intricate detail of their business. I look at their systems, I look at their financials, I look at their offerings, and I get really deep into what their offerings are and which has been successful, which has not been successful, how many people are going through it, and then try and optimize those so that way you can make more money with the current offerings and or offer something even better. And just going through you have to go through every single piece of everything. So once I know exactly where we're starting at is where I can start doing the questions of, okay, well, if you did this, what would that help? If we did this, what would that help? So it's really getting in the weeds first, asking a lot of questions, and then really figuring out where they want to go and then mapping that out. I am obsessed with puzzles, like jigsaw puzzles. So it's all like a big, huge puzzle to me. And adding in the automations makes it more fun.
I'm like that too. It's like everything is solvable. Every problem is something that you can be fixed. You just have to explore it. So many times, I hear women say, and even the multi 6 figures, they're like, oh, it's not working. Facebook ads stopped working. I'm not going to use them anymore. Right. It's like, wait a minute.
Right.
No. Are you looking at the data? Oh,
right.
Data? What? Should I be tracking something? It's like, yeah
right. Like, how are you not tracking something?
Yeah. But for someone listening, maybe even if they might just be getting to 6 figures and they're like, okay, I wish Jeanette would go just a little bit deeper to tell me like what I should be looking at. So can you give any pointers in this idea of going in the weeds analysis in order to really make that long-term plan?
So let's take like an offer. Let's say you're about to launch something. So I would look at all the emails you're sending out. How many of them were clicked? I would see how many people like actually bought, how many people showed up to your webinar and what that percentage is. And then go into, if you had ads, what are the marketing around the ads, all the numbers between that, and say, okay, based on these numbers, it was either good or bad. And then also say, why didn't people buy? Was there a confusion? What does the marketing say around it? What does your sales page look like? Is your sales page confusing? Like, is there not a place for them to buy? When they were on the webinar, at what part did they drop off? Those are all key statistics to see, is it the pitch? Some people are just not going to buy. Is your audience not warm enough? Did you send too many emails? Were the emails confusing? Did the emails not provide enough data on exactly what you would be, the transformation you're going to provide? I think that when we're looking at all the data, we need to just, one, be subjective and just be like, okay, this is the data. And then the next launch, go back and bounce the information based off that. And I think that some people look at the big names like the Stu McLarens or the Amy Porterfields, and they try and compare their launch to them. They've been doing it for literally over a decade. Like, you cannot compare yourself to them. You could just take your numbers, do tests on your audience, and then go from there, because your audience is not their audience. Your offers are different, and comparison is the thief of joy. Like, you cannot.
Oh, say that again.
Yes.
What?
Comparison is the thief of joy.
That's right. Hey, joyful scaling. If your
Yes.
business is not joy filled and you don't get excited about what you're doing and how you're doing it, and even this back end that we're talking about today, if you don't decide, let me ask you something, Jeanette. I'm all about our thoughts could change everything. And that's why with my faith-fueled thought model, we got to hold all thoughts captive as unto Christ. And so I'm thinking that if someone's listening and they're like, yeah, operations, yeah. It's like, when you approach it with the thought of that's not necessary or that's not important, the results are going to show that. So what would you say to someone who is operationally challenged? That was me like 5 years ago. Like, you couldn't make me like even think about processes. But what would you say to that person who's resisting even looking into these kinds of things?
I would say, one, hire somebody like me who loves it. And two, this is hard, but it is necessary to scale to the level you want to. If you want to be at the multi-6 level, the 7 level, you need to have systems and processes. One, so you can have a team to help you, because nobody can help you if your Gmail is all messed up and doesn't have any labels in it, or your drive is who knows what, like, people can't help you if everything's a mess. It's like going into a hoarder's house. Like, you got to have some organization there.
Wow, that is a really clear picture. Okay, we don't want a hoarder business. We don't want our businesses to look like a hoarder. Yeah, that's so good. All right. So I'm curious, one of the things that we went back and forth in the notes for today's show was talking about an offer suite for this season. So talk to me about that.
So I love offer suites, and just like making sure that your offer suite is tailored for your actual client. Like, I feel like sometimes we have an ICA or an ideal client avatar and we don't look back onto who they are. We have to be constantly looking at, as they're developing, the landscape of what is happening right now in the industry is changing. So you have to be having a constant ear to the ground on that current ICA. Sometimes it changes. I feel like when it was 2021 and 2022, people were just throwing money at things. They had a lot of disposable income and they were willing to take chances. Now I see people returning to 9-to-5s. I see people like not necessarily scared to spend money. They still have some money, but they are more resistant to throw money at just anything. They need to see a clear transformation. They need to see proof that their things are going to work. So you have to be cognizant of how they are acting now. It's not like you're going to see the same thing from here to there to there. You have to be constantly changing your offers to meet the current need now. That need is going to change. So yes, you can still have your flagship, but you might have to position it a different way. You might have to market it a different way. So that way it will still affect the people that need your services and your work. You know that your offer suite is like your life's work. And I would never tell you to change your offer suite. You know what I mean? Like I worked hard on mine too. Like, I don't want to change that. But I do know that people always want what they want and not necessarily what they need. So maybe you just change it so that way it is what they want. It's a little bit sweet, but it's also what they need. You know what I mean? It's a
Oh,
little bit of both.
absolutely. You know what? You know what? The fun thing with what you just said at the end that I just want to emphasize is that it could be that on the back end of the delivery of your offer, it's no different, but it's how you
Right.
talk about it. It's how you talk
Yes.
about it, and being very specific. I always say strategic and intentional with your word choice and how you not just tell people about something, but you show them
Right.
how it's going to impact their lives. I mean, and I know I've heard things like that. I know in years past, when I was first starting out, and it would be like, yeah, I have to be specific. But I always say you got to obsess over your best client. You've got to obsess about her. Stop worrying about the one who's the freebie and the tire
Yeah.
kicker. We don't pay
Yes.
attention to them. We don't speak to them. All right. That is so cool. I want to talk just a little bit about growing team. And I'd love your insights on growing a team, because that's one area that I love to speak on as well, because I really think that it's not as hard as so many believe it is. So many think it's so hard they don't even get started. So what are some of your biggest ahas that you want to share about growing your team? And specifically, if you have never done it before, or you have one, but it was like hell and the devil to find the one.
I would say the number one thing would probably be they don't have to work full time for you at first. I think some people they hire somebody and they're like, I got to have 40 hours of work for this person. No, you don't. You just need to know very specifically what they need to do for you and how they need to deliver it for you, what gold is. So you have to have your
Yes.
SOPs, you have to know what they are going to need in order to do the things that they need to do for you, what you expect, your expectations very clearly. Like, this is when it's due, this is how I want it delivered, those expectations. But it doesn't have to be like 40 hours. And you can hire somebody very minimally, fractionally right now. Like, I feel like if you have something that you do constantly that you don't enjoy doing, that somebody will be really good at, that can cost less than you, hire somebody.
Love
Literally
that.
hire somebody. And it
Yeah.
doesn't even have to be in your business. It could be something like, I'm hiring somebody to do my lawn because that takes 14 hours for me and my husband to do it on a Saturday. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. And again, I always want to be cognizant of my audience reaction. Some will say, yup, and they're nodding their head along with us. Others I know are saying, well, she doesn't understand because I have a tight budget and I can't afford that. Ladies, the most precious resource any of us has is time. And as you grow in profitability and in revenue of your business, time is what you have less of. You have more money. So there you go. Like you don't have to be a spendy person, but you don't have to be Ebenezer Scrooge, because that's not going to serve you. It's not going to serve you at all if you are like, okay, I'll just be really real, Jeanette. I don't like cooking. I mumble every time.
I don't
Oh,
either.
really? Oh, okay. High five.
I have a scar right here from peeling an apple the other week. Like, I don't cook.
I love you. I don't know if I said this on a podcast before, but when I was a junior and it was the morning of PSATs, and I thought, I'm going to make myself some French toast. That seemed easy, right? I don't know what I did. I had the oil burning too long. I turned around, there was a freaking huge fire, and I'm screaming. And then I put it in the sink, and I knew water and oil don't mix, and I turned on the water and it went whoosh.
Oh no.
Anyway, there's maybe a reason why I don't like cooking, but back to the point, it's like, if cooking's not your thing,
Don't do
and you have littles or teenagers and they don't like cooking either, whatever the reason, why not make it easy on yourself? Spend to get, somebody in there to cook for you and put it in the freezer. I don't know, but that's the one like personal example, which would impact your life, which impacts your business.
Yes. And it makes you don't feel the fruits of the spirit when you're cooking. I don't. So I don't want to do it. I don't feel joy when I'm cooking. I only cook when I do feel joy, which is not very often. So I don't do things because then it affects how I talk to my kids. I've got little kids, 6 and 3, And it affects how I talk to my husband, because I'm like in this muck of doing things that's yuck. So don't do that in your business either, because when you show up for your business, people will feel that energy.
Absolutely. Amen. All right. See, I when someone else says they don't know how to cook or don't like cooking, I instantly feel such a connection.
I
Now,
know.
listen, I'm gonna, I'm sorry, but I've got to say this. This is connection. I feel closer to Jeanette than I did when we started. Okay. So when you're like, what am I going to talk about on social? Why don't you do a story about how you hate cooking? Okay. I've noted that too. I don't like cooking. Anybody else? Because you're going to draw people out. It's just interesting. And we are people. We need to stop acting like corporate, robots. We can just be real. All right. I do want to get back to the overall topic of your next six figures. So,
Yes.
if someone like how do you help your clients to even do you help them in goal setting? I'm curious as it
Yes.
relates to operations. Okay.
Yes.
So
That's
I mean,
number one.
yeah, help me on that.
So when I first come into a container with a client, it's a 12-month thing. So I want to first set the goals of like, okay, where do you want to be financially? What do you want your business to look like? How many hours do you want to work? Those types of goals are very important. So I know exactly how I can help them. And then I take a look at how many hours are you working right now? And how much money are you making? So that way we know what we need to start working towards. And another thing that's really important to me in doing this goal setting is the personal goals. How many books are you reading? What is your life like with Christ? Like that is a very important part of business. Are you filtering everything through the lens of Jesus? Are you praying about everything that you're changing? Sometimes I think that we talk about like the hard things, like the technical things, especially when I'm talking about operations, but also the soft things of like the prayer, the rhythms of being with Jesus in the morning or whatever that looks like. That is also a thing that needs to happen. So once I do that, I go through there and I say, okay, these are the things that we can change. These are the tests that we can do, because everything has to be tested before it's implemented. And I go through a process. It's kind of off of a process called ITIL, which is it's a technical certification. And in that certification, it's basically how you implement something and then test it, look at the results, and then you go back and change if you need to, revert back to the previous version or continue. So that's kind of the process that my brain just thinks of. So that's what we do. We plan it out, we test it, and then if the test is bad, we go back and then we do a new iteration, and then you continue to test, which is why it takes me a year to work with somebody, because I'm not a magician. That's just not a thing.
Well, I mean, it ebbs and flows too. So can you give us just like a tangible example when you say, I'm testing it, it didn't work,
Yes.
or something needs to be changed? Like, can you pull something out, like, so they can really wrap their heads around it?
Yeah. Let's say we change the process of how people are coming into your next launch, right? We're using these 3 platforms and they're going through like this email sequence to be onboarded. You've got an Airtable with all their information in it. And then you send out a gift, a welcome gift. Let's say that their information isn't going to the Airtable, or when it gets to the Airtable, the automation is not coming to your Slack for your teammate to send out the gift. Then we say, okay, why is this not working? Is this even viable? Can your team member actually send out the gift? We look at those pieces and we say, okay, that team member can't send out the gift. Is there a service that we can hire that will do it for us, that has our custom gifts? Do we need to automate this? Do we have a person that we know that is already doing this business that we can collaborate with? And we just go from there. So if it's not working, we'll just go back and be like, okay, that didn't work out like we thought it would. Let's try something else. And then in the meantime, while everybody is getting onboarded, we might do some manual actions while we're also fixing for the next time. So the next client that comes in, it's not the same process. We're constantly fixing as we're going and not just leaving things all willy-nilly.
Yeah. I love that example. And if anybody's confused and like, oh, I don't use Slack, I don't use Airtable. Okay, don't get bogged down in those details. The point is, we all have a process. A lot of us just don't have it in writing. And if that's you, you got to change that right quick so that there's continuity of how things are done, so that quality remains high, and, the experience, because that's what really matters in that example. The
Yes.
client experience is so important. All right. Well, obviously you are a wealth of operational knowledge. But before we get into where the ladies could kind of reach out to you, I understand you have a beautiful freebie on prayer. Would you tell us about that?
Yes. So I have it's 40 prayers, and these prayers, I did not write these prayers. I found these in a book that I have been toting around as an Air Force member for the last 10 years, and finally opened the book for my mom and was like, these prayers are so good. I have to share these. And in the fine print, it said, please share these as you can. And I said, yes, please, I'm going to share them. So these are 40 prayers that I found for your business and for your life, to just feel the abundance that God has for you, and to always be surrendering to Him, and just to get closer to God. So this is I pray these every day. They are so amazing.
Oh, I love it. And I'm going to have that and other links in the show notes, but it's Jeanette Peterson with one N and two T's and
Yes.
Son, S-O-N. I'll put it in the show notes, JeanettePeterson.com/40, the number prayers. That's so good. All right. So if, all these ladies are like, oh gosh, Jeanette, I'm madly in love. How do I connect with her? Where's the best place for them to go?
Instagram. I'm on the grams all day. Every day I share my gratitudes because I'm so grateful, and it helps me just set my mind with an intention in the mornings. And yeah, that's where I'm at, on the grams.
All right. Excellent. And we will put that in the show notes. Is there anything on your heart right now, Jeanette, as we wrap up, that we maybe didn't talk about that you'd love to leave as a last nugget of gold?
I would just say that if you are a woman that's in business in the 6 to multi 6-figure range, take a step out on God, knowing that He has you, and whatever He tells you as far as your operations or any of that, go for it, because He's not going to lead you in a place that is going to be lack because of your obedience. Just be obedient to God and whatever that has for you, and He will provide.
Amen. Amen. Jeanette, thank you. It has been an absolute delight. Thank you so much for coming on and being so real with our listeners. I really appreciate it.
Yes. Always. Thank you so much, Judy.
All right, ladies, thank you again for listening. You are amazing. You are the reason why we do this. You're the reason why I wanted to introduce you to Jeanette, right? Because we want to help you build and scale your business. So if you get value out of this show, and I'll tell you, it's been blowing up. My DMs lately have been blowing up. So thank you for that. But if you would please pause for a moment and leave a review, especially on Apple, it would mean the world to me. Go to bit.ly/joyful scaling on Apple. That's an easy bit.ly we created. So go find that. And where you're listening right now, leave a review. It means the world. Take a screenshot of that, tag me at Judy Weber Co., and we'll send you a special something. So once again, thanks for listening. Thanks, Jeanette. Mwah. We will see you next time.